Hey there, Jack here again. I'm sitting here in our podcast setup. I don't know if you see this. Here's a podcast microphone. Here's all the lights and so on. We have a podcast called the Forever Cash Live Real Estate Podcast. So the Forever Cash Live Real Estate Podcast would be happy to, if you join us there, go to iTunes, search for that, give us 5-star reviews. And also on YouTube, we have a page called jackbosch.com where we do things. Now today though, I want to come with you and with an explanation. I want to explain to you how you can do what's called a double closing. Double closing is a process that has been around forever, that is legal in all 50 states of the United States, no matter what people tell you. And here's a little story about that. Now, first of all, here's how a double closing works. First of all, double closing works such that you have a buyer, you have a seller. The seller is right here, my glasses, right? This is the seller. You have a buyer, which is my fist over here, and you are in the middle. Right, so what that means is you go and find the seller. You find the seller with our proven land profit generator techniques. You can go to landprofitgenerator.com, find out more about it, watch some videos and so on. And I'll put a link below here too. And you find that seller who has a property and he's willing to sell the property to you at our typical discounts of 75 to 95%, meaning you're buying it at 5 to 25 cents on the dollar. So he has a $30,000 property that is willing to give to you for $4,000. So now what you do is you put it under contract and then you go start marketing that property. You don't buy it right away, but you put it on a contract and you start marketing it. Now what happens if you find your buyer? Here's the buyer. Yes, hello, this is the buyer. Right? My daughter and I also play this game where I'm Steve and she's Stephanie, even though her name is Sophia. So we go, hello Steve, hello Stephanie, and we go play like that. Okay, just as a side note, to be a little silly here, but this here is the buyer. So the buyer says, hey Jack, I want this property. It's like, great, how much do you want to pay for it? Well, I'm willing to pay, I'm asking for it for $25,000. Well, that sounds good. I'll pay you $25,000 for the property. Or let's say $20,000. $20,000, it's a smoking deal. It's worth 30. You sell it for 20. Is that a good deal? And it's like, yeah, okay, I'll buy it for 20. Great. So you remember, you have it under contract with this guy for $4,000. So now you can do a double closing. And what that means is now you have a contract between you and the seller for $4,000. And now you write up a contract between you and this weird hand here for the buyer here for $20,000. So now what you do is both of these contracts now go to title. You send both of these contracts to the title company, and the title company now opens escrow in both cases. The title company now goes and does the title search, prepares all the paperwork and so on, and then they basically, and you tell the title company that what you're doing is a double closing, also called a A to B to C closing, also called there's other words for it, but anyway, I call it the double closing. So then the title company, what they do ultimately is what they will do is the following. They send you a package for you to sign. Usually, by the way, you don't have to show up physically at the title company, right? The property might be I live in Arizona, the property might be in Florida, and the seller might be in New Mexico, and the buyer might be in Texas, right? So we're all different parts of different people. The title company needs to be in the state where the property is located in. But other than that, people can be anywhere. So the title company emails you your closing package, you print it out, and you go to Notary Public if something needs to be notarized, and you sign it. Then you send it back to the title company. The seller gets a package, the seller signs it and sends it back to the title company. The buyer gets a package, right? The buyer, this guy, gets a package. He also goes signs it, but then the buyer is also being asked for all of his money. So not all of his money, but for the $20,000. So the buyer now sends over the $20,000 to the title company, and the title company now does the following. The title company now takes the $20,000 and passes on. And what actually happens behind the scene is that part of what the title company sends the seller is a deed from the seller to you, right? So if I'm playing this game, I am buying the property, but also the title company sends me a deed from me to the buyer. So the property goes seller to buyer, buyer to me, and all of that in an instant transaction. It all gets collected in the title company. When the money's there, the title company records the deed from the seller to me, and then or to you, and then the deed from you to the buyer. Right? So you only take ownership of that property for about 5 minutes. And that's the reason why you don't have to bring up any money for it, because none of your money is being distributed. The buyer's money is being used now to pay the seller its $4,000, to pay the title company $1,000 or $1,500 for their effort and their expenses. So if they pay $4,000 to the seller of the 20, they have $16,000 left over. If they now pay themselves $1,500, they have $14,500 left over. And guess who gets the $14,500? You do, because you were the person who were in the middle. Right? You make that money in the middle without having spent $1 of your own money. Now this process is legal. That's called the double closing. And this process is legal in the entire United States. So in summary again, how does it work? You have a deal with the seller and you put the contract in place. Then you have a deal with a buyer and you put a second contract in place. Both contracts go to a title company. You tell them you want to do a double closing. You also tell them that you do not want for the other parties, like for the other parties here, to know the price. They will have to be informed that the double closing is happening, and they don't care, but they will not have to know that you're making $14,500 in the middle. So therefore, they're okay, they're proceeding, everyone wants to get the deal done, everyone signs their packages, and then the title company has all of it together with the money. They're recording the deed from the seller to you, they're recording the deed from you to the buyer, and then they're distributing the money. $4,000 goes to the seller, $1,500 goes to themselves for their efforts, and $14,500 goes to you. All right? That's the process, and that is legal all over the United States, in all states. Here's the thing, even though some title companies will tell you that it is not legal, right? I always forget to look right here in the camera. I'm looking at the screen, but I should be looking here. So it goes straight into, so it's legal in every state, even if some title companies tell you that this is not legal. Now, here's the reason why it's legal, or why they think it's not legal. Back in 2008 and 2009, when a whole bunch of properties went to foreclosure, what happens is, the banks took these properties back, and the banks put them out on the market, and a whole bunch of a wholesaler guy, a whole bunch of house flippers did exactly what I just explained to you. They did a double closing. They got a smoking deal from the bank. They passed it on to somebody else. They put no money up, and they make $10,000, $20,000 in the process. Now, at some point of time, sometimes even more, sometimes 50 or 100 grand, who knows? But at some point of time, the bank starts saying, hey, this is like not really fair. We put out all the work, they make the money. So let's not allow them to do a wholesale deal. That means that what we require them is for them to actually come with cash to the table. So the banks started not allowing the dry closing, the double closing anymore. So the banks, now the investors had to come with their own money, which guess what they did? That sprung up the industry of what that's called transactional funding. Right. So after doing that, so now there's money givers that came, or lenders that came in and lent the money to the investor for 24 hours. So the investor was able to come to the deal with money, buy the deal, and then the next day the title company would wire the money back, because obviously the double closing still happened. Only that now the investor brought the $4,000, or in this case on a house, perhaps 10 times the numbers. They bought the $4,000 or $40,000, and then the buyer brought their money. The $40,000, the money was from the investor, was used to pay the seller. The other money was used to pay the investor, and then the rest of the money was being basically sent back to the to the lender. So the lender had almost no risk in the deal, and they made very good fees. And then the bank started saying, well, they tricked us again. Why don't we do something else right now? Why don't we just say that they have to hold it for 90 days? And then there's other things and other things come up, and soon enough they put pressure on the title companies to just not allow double closings anymore. So that means that when you come across a title company that says double closings are no longer allowed, be aware that this is not a law. This is not a law by the state of XYZ, wherever state the property is in. This is just a rule that title companies have been put in under pressure from banks. So all you need to do is you need to go switch and look for a different title company that is willing to still do double closings. And there's lots of them out there. Usually it's not the big ones. It's not the First American, Stewart Title, Chicago Title, and all this kind of big companies, because the big ones are the ones that are like basically, in other words, sucking up to the banks, and the banks have some power over them, and the banks told them, we're not going to give you any more deals unless if you allow double closing. So they gave in, and they don't allow the double closings. But the small ones, the regional ones, right? The ones that are not, they're working, there's some that specialize on working with investors. They do that. Then all you need to do is Google title companies and call 5-6 of them, and one of them will take it on. So that's the way to do this. So this is legal in every state, and you can do this. Our deals are particularly good for those, because those land and lot deals, there's no lending anyway included. The buyers don't need money. The buyers don't need a loan. The sellers don't need a loan. We're talking about deals that might be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. That contract prices. We're talking about perhaps a $75,000 deal that you put under contract for $15,000 and you're selling for $40,000, right? So you're making a $25,000 spread on that deal, but the buyer is still getting a killer deal on it. He gets a $70,000, $80,000 property for $40,000. So he's excited, you're excited, everyone is on board. Yet if you don't have $15,000, you can do that double closing. And I would say right now, 90% of our students that do our deals, and we have students all over the country now, it's probably the most successful and most success stories of any program out there in the marketplace, given the volume that we have, which we are only a niche product. We're only a niche player in the land and lot area. But we have probably the most success in the entire country right now. So if you're interested in that, go to below or somewhere, perhaps we put something on the screen at some point of time here, it says go to landprofitgenerator.com, check it out. And if you like these videos, and if you watched it, if you've seen it on Facebook, go like the page. If you've seen it on YouTube, go subscribe to our channel. And also make sure, as I mentioned, I'm here in our podcast studio. We have a video and an audio podcast that we broadcast both on iTunes and on YouTube. So make sure you go to iTunes and subscribe to the Forever Cash live real estate podcast, Forever Cash Life. It's about living a life with cash that comes in forever. Passive income, like freedom of financial freedom is the motto of our podcast. All right, talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.